What's up, guys? So we're back. As you can see, we are back in the backyard once again. The next few videos might be filmed out here, I'm not sure yet, but I know this one will be, the last one will be, and probably the one after that. So if you hate this background, get over it, dude. Nobody cares, alright? Moving on. So what we're going to cover today, another alien video. I know you might be getting sick of it. I don't really care. I like talking about this stuff. I think it's interesting. If you don't like it, get out of here. I'm just kidding. More stuff's on the way. It's not all going to be about aliens, I promise, but kind of got on a roll researching stuff, and this is kind of what happened. So here we are. We're doing more alien videos. For now, I promise there'll be some more stuff in the future, but for now, this is what I'm going to do. Cover a couple like interesting UFO stories that I think people don't know about. Until I get it all out of my system, we can talk about something else. Deal? Deal. All right, so let's move on. The one today is one that I've wanted to talk about pretty much since the very first video. This is one of the craziest stories I think you'll ever hear when it comes to UFOs. Yeah, I just saw a bit about it on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day. He was talking to a guy who was making a documentary about it.
He thinks you should look into this landing case that happened in Africa at the school. And I said to myself at the time, and remind you guys that I was making a film on UFOs, and I dismissed it so quickly because I thought, there's no way that a mass landing with the sheer volume of eyewitness testimony at a school in broad daylight could happen and the whole world not know about it.
And there's another guy also making a documentary about it right now. It's a really big case, super popular. Kind of stayed under the radar for a while, and recently it's kind of resurfaced again. But really interesting case. I think you guys are gonna love this one. It's really cool. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so the case we're talking about today happened near Ruwa, Zimbabwe in Africa. And happened at a school on Friday, September 16th, 1994. So not that long, year after I was born. It took place at the Aerial Private School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, about 20 minutes outside of the capital of Zimbabwe, Harare. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm really sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I'm horrible at pronouncing names. But around 62 students saw what happened that day. Some people say it's a little more, some people say it's a little less. Either way, a lot of kids. So that day was like any other day at school. The kids were out playing while the teachers were all inside having a staff meeting. So the kids are chilling outside, doing kid stuff, kicking the dodgeball and throwing the kickball and stuff like that. All of a sudden, they start seeing these red lights in the sky. So to be clear, it's about 62 kids that are gonna see what happens right now. So there's a lot of kids outside. I don't know why they left these kids unobserved outside to have this teacher meeting. I don't know why one of them couldn't sit outside with them, but apparently all these kids were alone outside that day. So it's about 10 a.m., 10:15, something like that. And kids from about 5 to 12 years old, right? They're playing in a field. It was their mid-morning break from school. And suddenly they saw these 3 silver balls floating in the air. So these orbs that they're seeing in the sky are kind of flashing in and out of existence. So they're seeing them for a second, then they disappear. They're seeing them for a second, they disappear. So all of a sudden, one of these balls starts descending into this wooded area where the kids were forbidden from, because Africa's a crazy place, and there was a lot of poisonous snakes, poisonous spiders, crazy stuff in this brush they were forbidden from going into when they were at recess. So this thing starts landing inside this area. So it's landing. It's about 300 feet from the where the kids are. So about a football field away. So they're kind of watching it land inside these gum trees. So kids, they don't care. They're gonna break the rules. They see something crazy happening, they're gonna go break the rules. So these kids start wandering into this foresty area, trying to see what's happening, where this thing's landing. So they kind of duck through the foresty area, and they see the craft has landed on the ground. I think it might have been hovering like a couple feet off the ground, but it was essentially landed. So these kids are freaking out. They start surrounding this thing, and all of a sudden, this weird looking creature lifts up out of the top of the craft. And the description of it is extremely strange. So let me read it to you. So it's approximately 3 feet in height. They claim that it had a shiny and tight-fitting suit. They also stated that it had a scrawny neck, a narrow face, thin arms and legs, long black hair, and huge eyes like rugby balls. I don't know if you've ever seen a rugby ball, but I mean, that's like huge. And on a 3 foot creature, I mean, think about how big those eyes would be. That'd be terrifying. So the kids watch this thing lift out, and not to mention, I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but long black hair. I've never heard of a UFO sighting having long hair except like the Nordic ones, which are supposed to be like long blonde haired, very symmetrical, perfect looking beings. But I've never heard of anything with long black hair, much less like an alien looking thing with long black hair. I mean, it's like Alice Cooper is an alien or something. So the kids start freaking out at this point. They're looking at this thing like, what is going on, you know? So the being is, he doesn't even seem to be aware of the kids. I don't know if he's just in his own world or what, but he's just kind of doing his own thing. He starts bopping around like he's an astronaut, you know? He's going, woo, woo, you know? I think they're spying on me over there. But yeah, he's floating around, you know, doing his thing. So the guy, he doesn't seem to be aware of the kids. He's just doing his own thing in his own world. He's thinking, I gotta do my research. My boss is gonna kill me if I don't get some like samples of Earth right now. So while dude number one is floating around having a good old time, another thing floats out of the craft that looks very similar to the first one. And now when I say floats out of the craft, they don't climb out, they don't come out of a door. The way the kids described it was, they just like seem to like emerge out of the craft, like lift out of it. So it's at this point that the first one that came out starts walking towards the kid. Doesn't even seem to be looking at them, but the kids start freaking out, especially the young kids, like I said, because it was ages 5 to 12. So the younger kids start freaking out, screaming, crying, running back to the school. The older kids stay in there like, yo, we got this. We're gonna Stranger Things this. We're gonna Stranger Things out of this, you know? They're gonna kill it. They're gonna do it. They're gonna kill it and they're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Kill it and do it. You know what I mean?
Don't do this for us. Do it for your country. Do it for your fellow man. Do this for
Zimbabwe.
America.
Ooh, I just got the chills.
So the kids, there's this creature in that area of Africa, I guess, called I'm gonna butcher this name, but it's called the Tokoloshi. And the Tokoloshi is this creature that's supposed to eat young children. Its whole thing is like that it devours young kids. And so these kids think that this is this demon, the Tokoloshi, and they just take off. And the older kids are like, yo, we know better than that. Like I said earlier, we gonna kill it, you know?
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you should be, because you are dirt! You make me sick, you big baby!
So when these kids start screaming, the first one that came out that kind of started walking towards them was like, oh, I think there's people looking at me. So he becomes aware of them all of a sudden. He kind of backs up. He's like, yo, what's going on? Kind of get some space in between them. And he starts staring at the kids, right? And as he's staring at the kids, both of these things are staring at the kids now. These kids start to feel this immense feeling of dread, like this crazy sadness just overwhelms them at the same time. And they start to feel this feeling like they could see the world decaying all around them, and that that humanity was doing something to ruin the world. It was almost like these things were speaking telepathically somehow to them, like giving them a warning of what was happening on Earth or something. Essentially saying that without action, the Earth was done for, and that, I don't know why he was telling kids about it. Maybe they don't know the difference. Or maybe, since I said earlier, these things were only 3 feet tall, maybe they were like, yo, these are my people. And I gotta warn, the short ones are clearly the more advanced ones here. We gotta warn them. So they send this message to these kids. These kids are freaking out.
They say they were spoken to.
How did those thoughts come to you? Did they come to you from the craft or from
the man?
The man.
Now, I know this sounds a little strange. It's out there. It's a weird message from aliens, and it's about what things that humans are doing to ruin the planet. I thought that was kind of off at first, kind of turned me off. But then as I read further, I realized that these kids are almost certainly telling the truth about what they saw and the realization they had that day. These things weren't speaking to them out loud. It was like telepathically. And every single kid that was there had the exact same story. They all described the same things. They all drew the same things. But we'll get back to that. So, meanwhile, the younger kids at this time are making it back to the school, freaking out, crying. They run into the school. They're trying to get help. They're trying to get an adult to help. The only adult that wasn't in the meeting was a woman that was running the snack. It was like a snack stand area in the school. The kids are like trying to get her to come out. You know, they're begging, pleading, and she's like, "Nah, I'm not leaving my post. You guys are just trying to prank me and steal all my candy." And the kid's like, "No, please." They're screaming and crying. I mean, so much so that in the meeting, the teachers reported that they could hear the kids screaming and wailing outside. And for some reason, they thought, oh, you know, they're probably just playing, like having a good time, you know. There's nothing we should check on or anything. I don't know what that's about, but these teachers are crazy. A snack stand woman doesn't want to leave her stand because she doesn't want her snacks to get stolen. Perfectly reasonable. She'd probably get in a lot of trouble. We can't have that, you know. So then the other teachers are just ignoring the situation. So these kids are running around the school, freaking out. They don't know what to do with themselves. So cut back to the other kids. They're having this crazy experience, seeing these things. These things are communicating with them somehow. Another student, known only by the pseudonym Elsa, because these kids were young at the time. So a lot of these kids went under pseudonyms because they didn't want to be ridiculed for the story that they told. Some of them are obviously their identity is public, but some of them didn't want to be in the public eye, and so they went under pseudonyms. One of these people, her name was Elsa, like Frozen. She said she felt horrible for the rest of the day. She was unable to shake the horrific images that have been implanted in her brain by these beings. She believed that they wanted to convey to the human race a grave warning to stop destroying the planet or face the consequences. The world is going to end, she said. Maybe because we don't look after our planet or the air, like all the trees will go down and there will be no air. People will be dying. Those thoughts came from the man's horrible eyes. Another person, 10-year-old Isabel, also expressed just how frightening these creatures were. He was just staring, he was scary. They were trying not to look at him because he was scary. My eyes and feelings went with him. Now, I mean, why would kids make this up? Like, these kids aren't trying to push some political message. They're not trying to, what's the point in making this up? They're kids. They don't care about this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, it's not like the teachers are trying to push this on them because the teachers think these kids are crazy. So they're clearly not in on what's happening right now. Another student also indicated that these extraterrestrials seemed to feel that human technology was quickly growing out of control and suggested something is going to happen and that we need to be careful of our technology. I don't know what technology they could be talking about, but first thing that came to my mind was like nuclear bombs. And how damaging they are to anything remotely in the area of where they're detonated, but also they're horrible. They have a horrible effect on the atmosphere as well, especially in the area where they're detonated. Another crazy thing I was thinking about is that UFO sightings went up like crazy as soon as we developed the nuclear bomb. So maybe somehow they picked up on the nuclear bombs going off and came here to figure out what was going on this planet with these crazy things going off. And that's when they found humans maybe, and they're trying to, warn us that these things are dangerous and we need to stop messing with fire or else we'll get burned kind of thing. I don't know, but it's interesting to think about. So after these kids get these images and whatnot, all of a sudden these creatures morph back into their craft. The craft lifts a little bit off the ground, shoots up in the air, it's gone. Never seen again. So the whole thing, I think they say lasted about 15 minutes. And another crazy thing about all this is that for 2 days prior to the event, the Zimbabwe media was reporting news stories of people seeing craft all around that area, in Ruwa and in Harare, in the capital. So it wasn't just these kids that were seeing things. There were people reporting stuff like crazy within the 2 days prior to what happened. So the next day, a woman named Cynthia Hind called the headmaster of the school, a man named Colin Mackey, and asked him to have the students draw pictures of what they saw. Cynthia was known in her lifetime to be Africa's foremost UFO researcher. So she calls the teacher. She's like, yo, you need to get these kids to draw this. So he sits all these kids down separately so that they can't influence one another or whatnot, like in a testing type of situation, and get all the kids to draw what they saw. So the next day, she shows up. She gets there. She actually ends up coming to the school. And there's about 35 drawings of what happened. So 35 of the kids drew what they saw that day. And she was shocked to see how insanely similar all of these were. and how similar all of their stories were and how they perceived the whole thing, given that the diversity among the kids. So like they were all different ages, different ethnicities, and different social standings. So it wasn't like their cultures and the people around them, their age, anything like that, influenced what they saw. They all saw the same thing despite these changes, you know. Despite the fact that some of them thought it was that demon thing that eats kids, they still described it the exact same way. So it wasn't like they were seeing it differently than anyone else. They all saw the same thing. And on top of that, the kids were extremely emotionally scarred from what happened to them. And not only that, but they felt like they couldn't talk about it because they were ridiculed and made fun of. You know, it only made their lives harder to talk about what they saw. So a lot of them kept it in for years, and still some of them don't even talk about it to this day. So she interviews all these kids, and she finds out that almost none of them don't even know what a UFO is. They don't know what a UFO is. They don't know what extraterrestrials are. They don't know what any of these things are. They've never been exposed to that kind of information before, so it wasn't like they were reciting something that they had heard. They were just describing exactly what they had seen. I mean, these kids genuinely believed that what they were seeing was some kind of spiritual creature or demon, or they didn't know what was going on. And it's interesting because all these stories that the kids told, they were very similar to other UFO stories, even though they didn't know about these other UFO stories. Like, for example, so one of the main themes in like UFO abduction stories or like UFO sightings is that the things speak telepathically to people. They don't talk out loud, they speak telepathically. Which, how would the kids all come up with that same story if they don't know that that's a thing that aliens do, or supposedly do? Another thing is that it's a common theme in like UFO sightings and abduction stories that not only do they communicate telepathically, but they warn humanity of things that they're doing wrong and things that they need to improve. They need to do to like make the world a better place or save it from some impending doom that might be coming. So the thing that's on my mind is, how did all these students come up with the exact same story? They drew the exact same thing. The themes in the story were very similar to other UFO sightings and claims. It just doesn't make sense to me that all these students could have came up with the same thing in that one day during recess while the teachers were inside having a staff meeting. But let me know what you guys think. If you guys think that, you know, this sounds ridiculous, or there's no way that all these kids, it was some kind of mass hysteria event, you know, let me know. But I am pretty confident that these kids saw something that day. And that's where we're going to get into another person that came to visit these kids, who is even more famous than Miss Hind. His name is John Mack.
John Edward Mack was born in New York on October 4th, 1929. In 1955, John graduated from Harvard Medical School. In the late 60s, he founded the Cambridge Psychiatric Hospital and would rapidly secure it a worldwide reputation. In 1972, he became a full professor of psychiatry at Harvard University. 1977 was a turning point in John's career. He was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for his biography of Lawrence of Arabia. When he treated his first experiences, John had had almost 40 years of professional psychiatric practice. In 1994, his conclusions about alien abduction phenomena caused a scandal, yet they would be supported by many other medical teams. He wrote that the reported abductions were not hallucinations, nor were they schizophrenia, psychosis, or any other mental condition. He stated these abductions were not dreams. The abductees were sincere, they had nothing to gain, and were aware of the absurd nature of their experiences. Amazingly, they had all told the same story, down to the slightest detail.
So this guy was kind of like one of the first people to really take this stuff seriously and try to give these people the time of day and figure out what this phenomenon was, because there's hundreds of thousands of UFO sightings reported every year, and yet people are just supposed to be quiet about it, and you know, if you look into it, you're made fun of. And that's exactly what happened to John Mack. He was ridiculed by everybody at Harvard University. Professors tried to kick him out, tried to have him removed from his position. They said that he was making a mockery of the school, all this stuff, just because he was researching something that they didn't like. And I don't know. There's some videos online of some of the other professors talking about him and talking about what he's doing and laughing about him and mocking him. And it's ridiculous. Like, the stuff that he was doing was 100% from a scientific perspective. He wasn't trying to be all woo-woo or anything like that. And the fact that these people just ridiculed him for no reason other than they were uncomfortable with him looking into something like UFOs or extraterrestrial life or abductions or whatever that phenomenon is in the psychological world. It's weird that they were so turned off by that. However, the good news is, as time passed, other scholars, other professors around the world began to support him in his research, and those who belittled him were kind of turned on. Like they became the ones that were made fun of and ridiculed, which is, you gotta love to see that. But Mack was, I mean, you can watch so many videos online of him. He was a great guy, genuinely sympathetic to these people, wanted to hear their stories, wanted to take them seriously, wanted to look at it from an objective perspective, and that's exactly what he did. So yeah, he truly believed that the people that were having these experiences weren't dreaming, they weren't mentally unstable, these were just normal people, and a lot of them just didn't want to talk about what they had experienced because they were afraid of ridicule, they were afraid of what people would think of them, they were afraid of what happened. They didn't even want to talk about it because they didn't want to even experience what they went through again just through telling it. And to me, that makes them even more credible. I mean, to me, it's like, why would they, if they're keeping it to themselves all these years, they don't want attention from it. They just want to live their own lives and move on from it. They're obviously telling the truth. They definitely saw something. I mean, something definitely happened. But moving on. So he shows up at this school. He starts interviewing these kids. Because of his experiences with psychiatry, he's been doing this for years. He quickly gains the trust of these kids, and they start telling him everything. That they're not holding anything back.
Something scared you, is that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the air?
Yes.
What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum, or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute. It was scary myself.
It was scary because you saw something yourself?
Yes. I saw a little object hovering. It was quite big actually, and then there was little ones all around it. It was silver, and the ring around it was red.
It was red. Did light come from the whole thing, or?
There are lights around here.
Lights along the edge there. How many of the strange beings did you see?
I saw one over here. They had eyes like that, and they were kind of just like looking at us. They were like kind of astonished.
The eyes were like more pointed as they came in toward the center of the head, is that?
No, more circular. And this was all black in here.
All black. Now you've made pupils. Did they actually have pupils or
white?
What?
The pupils were white like that.
You saw white in the center?
Yes, like that.
Was he near the silver object, or was he far from?
No, on top.
On top of the silver object. Okay. And did you look at him?
Yes.
Did he look at you?
Yes, then he gave me the creeps, then I stopped looking
Gave you
at
the
him.
creeps. Actually, in your drawing, you showed him standing up, didn't you?
Yes, I had to draw him standing up because I couldn't draw him sitting.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
Felt scared. Felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
As far as one can tell, these people are talking about something the way a normal person talks about something that has happened to them, except for one problem, that according to our worldview, it's not possible.
What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. Maybe they're telling us the world's going to end.
I can tell. I mean, I know this is something that a person wants me to believe, or they're frightened, or they're distorting reality in some way. There's nothing like that here. These are people of sound mind, by and large, telling me something that's they know that I might think they're crazy, and so they're a little concerned about telling me, and they're very full of questioning themselves and doubt, and I mean and then they describe something very real and intense, a light or something happened to their body, or it's the whole quality of the way they talk about it is the way a person talks about.
And Mack said that every single one of the kids that he interviewed gave consistent, reliable stories, leading him to believe that it was not a case of mass hysteria, but of a genuine alien encounter. Even one of the most devoted doubters of these kids, one of their teachers, but he claimed he eventually changed his mind about the case due to the consistency of the reports to the kids and the way they went home after school telling their parents about what happened, so much so that the parents had to call into the school and say, yo, what's going on with my kids? Like, they're terrified. Something happened that day at school. I mean, obviously the lack of adult witnesses outside, I mean, it would have been nice if a teacher would have been out there with them to see it, but I don't think that, to me, that doesn't change how credible this event was. Like, I think without a doubt these kids saw something that day. There's no way they all made this story up and were able to stick to the exact same stories over time. There's no way. They had to have seen something that day, whether it was aliens, whether it was the Russians, whether it was a crazy elaborate prank. I don't know how anyone could prank that, but I mean, if they can, that's crazy. I didn't know you could prank telepathy and telling people messages through them. I don't know. I mean, these kids were literally crying in horror about what they saw. Like, they were screaming and crying into the school while a bunch of them stood outside watching these terrifying things.
In the courts, in the actual justice system, if you had a child or a couple children out playing and there was a crime committed and the police interviewed them separately, what did you see? And they all described the same thing, that would be used as evidence, admittable evidence in a case that could possibly convict and prove without a shadow of a doubt that something happened. Here you've got dozens of cases like that. Dozens of saying the same thing happened. Yet this story is so, in my opinion, underreported.
Not only that, but over 100 children at the Pier House School, which is located 25 miles from Ruwa, watched as a UFO hovered and apparently searched for a place to land. At the same time that the school kids at the Pier House were awed by these celestial antics, all of the school buses in the Ruwa school district apparently lost the use of their radios, receiving nothing but static when this was happening. This was like really close by to what was happening, which is crazy. Decades and decades have passed now, and yet these kids still stick to their stories. Well, they're adults now, but they all still stick to their stories. None of them has changed their story about what they saw. They all tell it the exact same way. They all still claim that they're telling the truth. None of them have even shifted in their description of what they saw. Their description has been to the T every single time they told it, every time. I mean, if you're lying, you're gonna mess up some details here and there, but they haven't messed up any details.
These children, I mean, they stick to their story. I mean, 25 years on.
People need to know there is something else out there.
Picture that it'll never go out of my mind was the face and just the craft, you know, they'll always be there.
We met up on many occasions after that and hugged and shook our heads and said that was the most amazing experience of our lives, wasn't it?
It was literally fear of the unknown, pun intended. You know, that's the best way I can describe it, but I'll never forget it.
Strange, it was exciting, it was, you know, you don't see stuff like that every day, you know. That was like a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Strange, I guess, like I said, I don't want to believe in the whole aliens and stuff, but it always leaves me questioning, thinking, that was very strange, so it is possible. And I mean, in a way, I guess there are times when I try to disassociate myself with like the experience and like what happened in 94, like trying to disassociate myself with what happened there when I was in junior school, but I realize I'll be lying to myself.
No one is willing to say that because we know that we didn't just make things up. Something definitely was happening. Whether it was UFOs or whether it was who knows what else. You know, we can't say for sure one way or the other, but definitely there was something that happened there that day. And it got the whole school riled up.
I don't believe for a minute you could get that many kids to agree to do something like that. I really don't. I know children well enough. I just don't think that would happen. So I'm absolutely sure that something did happen there.
It had a deep and profound effect upon them, and still does. You can't, in this subject, ignore the data just because they don't fit your preconceived ideas. You have to say, okay, if this is what people are reporting, what did they see? What does it mean?
You know, when it's one thing if it was just one person that saw it, or, you know, one teacher or one kid or whatever, but when 62 kids see it, or however many it was, then it's hard to deny that what they saw was something real. Whether, like I said, whether it was a life form from another world or not, they definitely saw something that day, and I think it's worth talking about. It's a crazy story. But yeah, it's up to you guys to decide whether you think it's real or not. I think it's a cool story. I hope you guys did too. If you didn't, that's cool. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'm gonna have another video soon about another school sighting, the next video, and then after that I'm gonna try and look into something else. So yeah, let me know what you guys would be interested in me talking about. If there's another story you want me to talk about, if there's another alien story you want me to talk about, another cool, interesting conspiracy theory or something crazy that you want me to talk about, I'd be happy to do so. Just let me know. I'd love to look into this stuff. I have a blast doing it. I love making these videos, and yeah, thank you so much for all the support as well. Everybody that's been liking the videos, sharing the comments and stuff, it means a lot. You guys are amazing. I love you so much. Please keep it up. It really helps boost me up and the channel and makes me want to keep going. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. Do something nice for somebody today, as I always say. Make somebody feel loved, make somebody feel happy. Give them like a PS5. No big deal. Just give them a PS5 and make them happy, dude. Come on. So yeah, thanks for watching. I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you very soon. Adios. Bye.
There is a study that was published in the U.S. National Library of Medicine and National Institutes of Health called, quote, Episodes of Mass Hysteria in African Schools. Very specific. A very specific study that examines real examples of mass hysteria among school children in Africa. And in this report, the 94 Zimbabwe UFO incident is mentioned. It says this: virtually every single one of the 62 children iterated this exact same story with same details, and none of them had gone against his or her story. Many dismiss the 94 incident as mass hysteria affecting the children. But when the children were found to not have much prior knowledge to UFOs or popular UFO perceptions, many other people believe that what the children witnessed could have been real.
That case is absolutely, and it was witnessed by lots of other people in and around the area for several days before it chose a school to land.
It's so compelling because the children are all clearly, they're not actors. So as they're adults later, they're all talking about this moment, and it's like they had a religious experience together. If you had that scene in a movie, it would take like a really good actor to pull it off. And they'd probably need multiple takes. They'd probably want to get the best one. But those kids, the way they were talking about it and the way they were drawing it, you're like, wow, it really does seem like something happened to them.
Don't take it from me. Just suspend judgment for a moment and imagine, hypothetically, if a UFO or several UFOs landed at a school in broad daylight in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, Africa, and interacted telepathically with nearly 100 school children. Not all of them had telepathic, but seen the incident. How significant of a story would you give that?
Well, not only that, they had the same message.
Yes.
What the telepathic message was that technology is a real problem.
Yes.
And there's things that people are doing with technology that are going to ruin the earth.
Yes.
And they were trying to relay this to children, which is very strange.
Yes. Why do these things land at schools? It seems like, and I'm just totally speculating here, but it seems like if I were going to do that, it seems like a pretty benign environment. We have testimony from military guys that we take a fairly hostile position towards things that penetrate sensitive military installations. And, so maybe, I'm just saying maybe
it's safe.
Maybe it's safe.